Hi, my name is Cory Houchens, and I'm a member of Whiteland Missionary Baptist Church in Whiteland, Indiana. Today I'm going to tell you my testimony of salvation. When I was younger, my parents, at the age of 9, got a divorce. Most of common day Americans today, with the divorce rate being 50%. And I had a loving and caring family. I was raised in church from the time I was born. Carried to church every Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. Almost every revival. Even when I was playing in sports, my parents actually made me not go to the game, come to church, come to revivals. Very blessed in that aspect of it. But when I was 9 years old, my parents got divorced. They did separate ways, and still loved me and still cared for me and still went to church. But at an early age, my parents really worried about that affecting me when I became lost and I became the age of accountability. Some of those words we use. Missionary Baptist Church, but basically what it means is just acknowledgement of your sins, acknowledge that where you stand before the Lord, and just not knowing Him. When I was 9 years old, like I said, they got divorced, and it really bothered me. I was really close to my parents, and I kind of put them on a pedestal as them being the perfect relationship, the perfect mom and dad. And I remember that kind of startled me at an early age, but it didn't actually happen when I was lost. For another year after that. And kind of get right to it, me and my dad were actually going on a fishing trip. My dad was obviously trying to stay close to me. I only saw him every other weekend. And our relationship actually changed, obviously, when they got a divorce. At an early age, I've always known there was going to come this time in my life where I was going to know that God was going to deal with me. He was going to show me that I needed Him, and He was going to convict me of my sins. But I didn't know how that was going to feel. I've never felt that before in service. But I do remember specifically the day that God actually condemned me of my sins and showed me that I was lost in His sight. We were, like I said, going on a fishing trip to Kentucky, just me and my dad. And if you knew anything about me when I was a little kid, I was scared of everything. I was scared of stuffed animals. I was scared of just pretty much anything and everything. I was just a very timid little boy. And when we were driving, my dad knew that I was always scared of storms. And that Friday when we were driving, the clouds were as black as night, and they just started rolling in. So my dad, as he often would do, he would kind of tease me and say, "Oh, it looks like there's a tornado about to happen over there." Or, "Oh, it looks really bad over there. It looks like it's coming." And of course, at a young boy that I was, I told him, "Please, Dad, stop. You're scaring me." And he got real serious this time, and I knew that he was about to tell me something different. And so, of course, as a little boy, we're in a truck, and I'm scooting over closer and closer to him because I'm scared. And he looked at me and said, "Son, I want to tell you something very, very important. And I'm going to tell you about a storm that's actually coming for you." And so, of course, when I'm a 10-year-old boy, I'm really intrigued about what he's saying. He started telling me about, there's going to come a time where I'm convicted, and God's going to deal with me. He's going to draw me, and that I need to seek Him. And I need to seek Him until I find Him, and I find peace in my soul. And he could tell that I was very troubled. I definitely felt a separation, that I was no longer okay anymore, that there was something that I felt condemned. I felt like what he was talking about hell was actually where I deserved to go. Even a little boy that I was, I lied. I did things that my parents were pleased of. I knew that I was a sinner. And he asked me, even I still remember to this day, he asked me if I wanted to pray in the truck. And of course I said no. I was just worried about the fishing trip. And so some time passed. Obviously I got through that. And when I got back home, I started seeking the Lord at church. I started going to the front. I did everything that everybody told me to do. I sat at my seat. I sat up at the front. I talked to many of my family and friends about what it would feel like when you got saved. I wanted to know every detail so that I could mentally try to figure it out. So, once again, I just poured my heart out to God every single time. I would cry on the altar in front of everybody, and I had to humble myself, and it was so difficult at times. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. I would bargain with God. I would plead with Him. And at the end of the day, I still knew that I was lost. We had a youth weekend coming up. I was 11 years old. And at that youth weekend, it's a lot of people come to these youth weekends, and a lot of our churches and our friends and girls. At the time, I was 11 years old, so of course that was something that I was looking up to. And that Sunday morning, it was at Southside Missionary Baptist Church, and I came into the front door, and I noticed there was a line as we walked into church. And I heard music playing, I heard people singing, I heard the Pattersons singing, I heard Celeste Shive, who goes to Southside, singing, and Brian Shive, a man that was at the front, was just overwhelmed and just filled with the Spirit and just crying and hugging people as they came in. And there were some stairs leading up to that way, and as I walked up the stairs, I was so scared to hug him or shake his hand or even get around him. But when I got up to the top and he gave me a hug and he started talking to me about where I stood with the Lord, I just felt this overwhelming love that he had. It was such a genuine compassion for me. And I knew at that moment that was something that I wanted so bad that I would do anything for it. So I sat in service and, I thought to myself, I'm not going to pray. I don't want people to look at me. There's young girls here that, obviously I was embarrassed to even pray. But my stepsister at the time was with us, and I noticed that during the service she turned around and started praying in her seat. And it just hit me all of a sudden, like, she's going to get saved before me. And at 11 years old, obviously you compete with your siblings and people you're close with, and that was mentally, carnally what I was worried about. She was going to get saved before me. All my family gathered around her, all of everybody in the church gathered around her and was praying with her, and I was all by myself on that seat by myself. God started just pricking at my heart. And I thought to myself, if I just turn around and I just start praying, all the attention will be put on me again. So I did. I was really quiet. I turned around in my seat and I started praying. And I kind of looked up underneath my arm, and I noticed that no one saw me turn around and pray. No one came over to me and started praying with me. I was all by myself. And at that moment, God he just looks like he put like a shelter over me. I didn't notice things that were going on around me, and I just started pouring my heart out to God. I don't remember a specific thing I said. I didn't bargain with God like I usually do. I didn't do the normal things. I wasn't even hardly crying. And I thought that that's what really would get you saved, is just pouring your tears and bargaining with God. And all of a sudden, I just felt an overwhelming peace pass through me. It felt like a door opened up and wind just kind of blew through me. And it wasn't bright fireworks. It wasn't people shouting. It wasn't this overwhelming emotion. I just felt peace. And at that time, about the time that I felt that peace, people started noticing I was praying. And tons of people started coming around me and praying with me. And I heard my mom and my grandmother and just tons of people asking to help me and God just to deal with me. And I sat there and I tried to pray a little bit longer, and I just felt like I don't need to pray anymore. So I got up and I went to the bathroom, and I kind of, as Satan does, he tempts you and he tries to confuse you of what happened. And so I kind of looked in the mirror and I was like, you got saved. I mean, as plain as day, I just knew that I had salvation. So I went out and I sat next to my grandma, and as my grandma always does when I was younger, she would kind of ask me, what's going on, how do you feel, and those kind of questions. And this time I sat next to her and I was waiting for those questions to ask, and she didn't ask. She just looked down at me, and she was singing a song and singing with the congregation, and just a beautiful smile on her face. And then I looked around at the people, and for once in my life, I knew exactly what they were talking about. That is my testimony of salvation. And what I want to tell to you is, there's going to be times where you're going to question if that time when I was 11 years old was the time that I got saved. But I don't have to go back all the way to the day I got saved. All I got to go back to is to the last time I felt God's Spirit, which was not too long ago, actually just a second ago. My wife was telling you about her testimony. The overwhelming peace in my heart, just the joy of my salvation just bubbling up inside of me. And I'm just so thankful that I have those times to go back to. I don't have to go back all the way till when I was an 11-year-old boy. So if you haven't been saved, I ask that you would consider these testimonies that you're watching. Listen to God dealing with you in that heartbeat in your chest. And whether it be by yourself or whether you come to church and you feel led, find an altar in your heart. Pour your heart out to God, and I promise you, God will help you. May God bless you.